Hey Drew, how you doing?
Doing really well. Doing really well. I got a burning question for you.
Yeah,
What
fire away.
are what are payment network tokens?
Yeah, good question. Do you know a little bit about payment tokenization?
I am familiar with the idea of tokenization. Here, let me give
Yeah,
you my basic understanding, which is
sure.
that when I enter a credit card on a website, when I'm checking out, right, website app, whatever, it doesn't store my entire credit card, but it needs to hang on to something that represents my credit card, a
That's
token
right.
of it, in case of, like if it's just holding it until the item ships, or if I need a refund or something like that. So what gets stored is a token representing the credit card, which then
Yep,
gets sent back to the payment gateway, which does have the whole credit card.
you nailed it. Yeah, and so what's interesting about network tokens is it takes that one step further.
Mm,
So what you're talking about in this context, I would call a gateway token. So let's
gotcha.
say you're going to integrate to some of the major providers, maybe Stripe, CyberSource, some of these major providers, you would get a gateway token. If you want to take it one step further, with the PSD mandates coming from Visa, MasterCard, American Express, uh, if there's specific fields that are sent and we've signed up for an ID with the issuers, so Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they will actually generate a token that represents the card. So
Gotcha. So in
think
this case,
of
the token is not generated by Stripe; it's generated by
exactly
Visa, for
the
example.
issuer, exactly. And it actually represents the card, and the card can now change underneath. So,
Mm,
whereas the gateway wouldn't know, right? Now the issuer knows, and anybody that has that network token can actually get an update to say, hey, Drew Messenger Michael's card number changed, expiry changed. Here's a callback giving, either the last four and the expiry update. And then we can pass that network token through our gateway. And from there, you can authorize and continue to do things. So, very interesting in use cases like subscriptions, right? So, in the case where you're capturing a card and you don't want these to expire, right? So, I think it's super useful for businesses to understand this. This can also, so Apple really pioneered this concept a little bit with Apple Pay, and that's what's going on under the
mm.
hood with Apple Pay. So that card is using a network token, right? That's then you can use that online, but you can use it at point of sale. And that's how they're doing that is with this concept. So it's a cryptogram representing the card, a standardized way of doing it. And now all the issuers have adopted it on top of it. So, very interesting use cases, right? We're talking about subscriptions, maybe renewals for different memberships. We also could be talking about point of sale transactions and that card wallet for you as a business and maybe an e-commerce merchant uh, never expiring, right? You're not going to
Yeah, this is a
lose
classic
that
problem with
revenue. This is a
subscriptions, right?
classic
People's
problem.
people's cards expire. They thought they were still subscribed. They straight up forget to check, right? And then
Yeah.
in fact, they go, "Where's my stuff?" Or "Why am I no longer giving to NPR for that matter?" Whatever, right? This solves that problem, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, and take it one step further with you change your card, right?
Mhm.
Because it expires. In a lot of cases today, an online merchant, if you have subscriptions set up, they're now going to fail. And
Right.
now we have to bring them back, update, re-enter the PAN data, re-tokenize it with a gateway token, right? This really solves that core problem to update
Totally.
that card underneath to keep that revenue flowing. I mean, that's
So are there
I can't
security
see of a
yeah,
better reason to implement this, right? Other than to keep that revenue flowing if you're an online merchant.
uninterrupted. And if you're a customer, to not interrupt the thing that you've subscribed to that you presumably want, right? Like,
Yeah,
because I've definitely been through this process of having to manually change the expiry date, or having to like delete the card and re-enter it because there's no way to change the
that's right.
expiry date in the old
Yep.
interface or something like
Yep.
that. I was trying to ask though, are there security implications?
I mean, they're safer because the gateway is truly not storing the PAN, right?
Right.
So it,
Fewer points of failure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really sitting with the issuer, which has your PAN data anyways. They're the ones sending you the card, right? So they are
Right.
storing that number. So I would say they're much, much safer in that regard because you're now no longer sending through PAN data and storing it on multiple gateways.
So in summary, right, this eliminates some of the onus that used to be put on the gateway. This puts that
That's
on the
right.
side of the issuer, who, like you said, has this information anyway. They have to for the card to function. This
That's
means
right.
that you can have seamless updates of cards if they change, if the expiry date changes, if the card number changes, if anything changes. And this means that you can get uninterrupted revenue on the business side and uninterrupted product, services, whatever it is you want on the
Yeah.
customer side. And it's kind of the heart and soul of these digital wallets that we use for contactless payments that are like more and more the beating heart of like how we do online retail, offline, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it. And in fact, while you were talking, I just realized they are much more secure, in fact, because to actually get a network token provisioned, we need to provide through the gateway 11 to 12 additional validation fields and points that you don't necessarily need for a gateway token. So to
Oh, interesting.
truly get
Hmm.
a network token provisioned, we really need a lot more information about who you are, device, like all sorts of metrics and security features that are built in before the issuers will actually send a network token. And so there's inherently a lot more validation to ensure, and one of those is that it has to be 3D Secure verified. So you're not going to get a network
Mm.
token without running 3D Secure. So that initial authorization that gets run has to be 3D Secure verified, which obviously will invoke a two-factor authentication and things like this, right? Uh,
Bonus round. Define 3D secure for me and for the people at home.
Yeah, so 3D Secure is a set of technology specs from the issuers that allow us to basically ensure you are who you say you are in the online space. And we do that by transmitting data back to the banks in real time, as well as verifying secondary pieces of information that you have registered with the bank already, like a phone number or email to send you an OTP code. So there's when an authorization takes place, there could be a 3D secure challenge that has to be met, right? And that challenge would be like a two-factor code, something else. And the banks evaluate a whole set of things like your IP address, device, where you're doing this from, and those all factor into that 3D secure. But it enhances the security. And what 3D secure actually does, and this is what I mean, is it does a liability shift to the bank for the merchant.
Mm.
So generally speaking, if you invoke 3D secure, if there's a chargeback or fraudulent, maybe not chargeback, or fraudulent transaction, you're no longer responsible for that because you've offloaded that decision of if is this person truly who they are and their card to the bank. So there you go. Bonus round. That's really what 3D secure is.
That's good. No, and that goes right into the theme, right, of
Yeah.
shifting the liability, the responsibility, the onus of security
Back to the
onto the
issuer.
issuer, where it kind of belongs, right, as far as
It
like how
belongs. Yeah.
cards work.
And
If
you
you're
can
a
see
merchant,
now how
you're
network tokens play together, right, really well
totally,
with 3D
totally.
Secure. And it's part of the entire payment ecosystem that the issuers are trying to reduce fraud at all steps, but also provide some ease, right? They know
Yeah.
subscriptions, online transactions. This is why network tokens exist.
Make those transaction fees worth it, right? Like actually take on some of that security, all of
Yeah.
that. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense. All right, thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Drew.